there's a very high risk of it remaining an indefinite conflict at a higher or lower level for years to come until there's a political change on either or both sides. My name is Nick Westcott. I'm Professor of Practice in Diplomacy at SOAS, University of London. This is a mistaken objective in the first place because they cannot destroy Hamas without destroying the whole of the Gaza Strip. It may be they would like to do that, but that is not a viable option because the Palestinians have nowhere to go. The problem is that Hamas has integrated itself both physically and politically so much into the Gaza population that it's impossible to eradicate Hamas. And to some extent, the Israeli government is entirely wrong-headed to think that there is any military solution to their security problem here. Without a government that explicitly says, yes, we're willing to look at a more permanent political solution and not just a security solution, there is no basis for anything other than an ever more intensive Israeli occupation and an ever more intolerable life for the Palestinians. It is possible that an Israeli government of this kind would see that as a, quote, solution, unquote. It may be one they think all we're concerned about is Israel's security. We don't care about anything else, anybody else, and this is the only way to keep us safe. But how long can you confine an ever-growing population in an ever-diminishing space with less and less to see and do, and without humanity crying out and saying this is unacceptable? So from that point of view, I don't see it as a permanent solution. So the PA has extremely weak legitimacy, very old leadership, and would not really be in position to govern Gaza, even if they were willing to. President Abbas of the PA in Ramallah has said they would be willing to move in there, but only in the context of a wholesale solution to the Israel-Palestine problem, basically a proper two-state solution. But even in those circumstances, at the moment, the PA has very little legitimacy or authority, and they would be there purely backed up by Israeli soldiers. So there needs to be some kind of new leadership on the Palestinian side and on the Israeli side to start that. Israel has an advantage. It's a democracy. The people of Israel can choose to change their government if they want. Palestinian side, it's more difficult. It's hard to see any governments who'd be willing to put their troops in the middle of this situation in order to maintain peace, that the Israelis would trust and the Palestinians trust as well. So, but having Palestinians controlling their own security is something that hitherto Israel has only allowed in a very small part of the West Bank, and now would be very reluctant to do in Gaza. But the US is the power with the greatest ability to deploy in the region, and it's the only one that has real influence on Israel. Everybody recognizes that. So they are indispensable to finding some kind of solution, but they are not able to do that on their own. So it does require other powers in the world to cooperate and become part of that solution. I think there is now more understanding of the risks for the whole world of not resolving this conflict. The international community has lined up once more behind a two-state solution. Is it still feasible? Not in present circumstances, because there is no viable Palestinian state in the spaces that has been left to Palestinians who have a growing population in a diminishing space. A two-state solution is not easy in that respect, as we've seen in the West Bank. Israel retains the right to ensure security up to the Jordan River, and that has imposed physical limitations on Palestinians' ability to move that make a state effectively impossible. But secondly, the continued expansion of settler communities in the West Bank has made that more and more difficult and actually promotes instability in the West Bank because the settlers are aggressively taking control. So it required a complete change of policy on the part of Israel to create a situation where Palestinians can be assured of security in their own territory, and Israel not feel threatened. But at the moment, the existence of settler communities increases the threat to Israel as a whole, as well as, obviously, to the Palestinians. So that, too, is a huge political challenge as well as a security one. Politics in both the Israeli state and the Palestinian state have moved to the extreme because they both live in fear of each other, and therefore we now have effectively a far-right coalition in Israel, and you have Hamas, the dominant political force amongst the Palestinians, which is, a recipe for conflict. So you need a political system that motivates or incentivizes people to moderate their views and work together, which is very, very difficult. Some people might look at a one-state solution, where basically you say everybody can live between the river and the sea, Israelis and Palestinians together. But to create a state in which they feel equal, free, and safe is an enormous challenge. We're a long way from that. But we need to begin a process for which that has to be understood as an option. And if Israelis don't want to live in that option, then they have to make a two-state solution work. As do the Palestinians. One should never count out Mr. Netanyahu, but at the moment it looks like he's there on sufferance on the part of a large proportion of the Israeli people until there is time to make the change that many people want. If we accept that there's got to be some political negotiation, it would be more or less impossible for him to undertake that kind of negotiation, given his past and his views. That said, he's a man who's returned from the political dead more than once before. He has not supported a two-state solution. He has tried to divide and rule amongst the Palestinians. He has tried to encourage settlers and provide the Palestinians with an ever smaller space and ever less by way of resources or opportunities.